There is something you have never said out loud, not to your priest, not to your best friend, not even in confession, because you could not find the words for it. You have been praying for healing for a long time, and it has not fully come. And somewhere in the back of your mind, in the quiet hours when the house is dark and everyone else is asleep, you have started to ask a question that terrifies you. What if I die before this gets better? What if I run out of time? What if I leave this world still carrying this grief, this wound, this broken thing that never fully closed? What if I die unfinished? Because that is what the fear sounds like, isn't it? Not, am I saved? You know the answer to that. The fear is deeper. It is, am I too broken to be fully received? Stay with me, because what I am about to tell you changes everything you have been afraid of. I want to name something for you today that you may have been living with for years without ever having the language for it. There is a kind of quiet theology that faithful women carry, not the theology they were taught in class, not the doctrine they can recite, the theology they actually live by, down in the bone, where the fear lives. And this is what that theology sounds like. God will receive me when I am whole. God will receive me when I have finished healing. God will receive me when I have forgiven that person completely, when I have let go of that grief entirely, when I have finally put down that weight I have been carrying and arrived somewhere that feels like wholeness. God's welcome is waiting for me on the other side of my completion. Sister, I need you to hear me. That is not the gospel. That is a wound masquerading as humility. And I am not saying it to correct you. I am saying it because that lie has been sitting in the chest of faithful women for generations, and it has been costing them their peace. And it is time someone looked it in the face and called it what it is. The idea that you must be finished healing before you are fully received, that is a performance theology. It turns God's mercy into a graduation ceremony. It says that you earn your way into His arms by completing your interior work. And what it does, quietly, slowly, over years, is make you afraid of dying before you are ready. It makes you afraid that the wounds you still carry are evidence of failed faith. It makes you afraid that the grief that never fully closed means you were not surrendered enough, not faithful enough, not healed enough. And then you add that fear on top of everything else you are already carrying, and it becomes one more weight. Most women have been asking the wrong question about this, and it has been costing them their peace. The right question is not, will I be healed enough to be received? The right question is, what does God actually do with a woman who comes to Him still carrying something? And Scripture answers that question. It answers it with a criminal on a cross. I want you to stay with me here, because this is where I need you to stay. Because what the church actually says about this is something most women have never heard explained in a way that reached them where the fear lives. Luke chapter 23. The crucifixion. 2 men are dying beside Jesus, one on each side, and one of them looks over at the Lord in the middle of his own agony and says, "Remember me when you come into your kingdom." He was not healed. He had lived a life of crime. He had not made amends to the people he had wronged. He had not restored what he had taken. He had not reconciled the broken relationships behind him. He had not worked through his past or processed his wounds or arrived at any place of spiritual completion. He was a man who had done wrong, who was dying in pain, who had spent his life far from what he should have been, and who had nothing to offer except the last turning of his heart in the last moments of his life. And Jesus said to him, "Today you will be with me in paradise, not when you are finished, not when you have healed. Today, as you are, where you are, with everything still broken in you and around you." Let that sit in your heart for a moment. Let it actually land. God did not receive the completed version of that man. God received that man. And what could not be finished in time, God finishes in his own presence. Hear me carefully right here. I am not saying it does not matter how we live. Of course it matters. The life of faith, the sacraments, the effort to grow, the prayer, the confession, the showing up, all of that matters enormously. I am not flattening the invitation to holiness or suggesting that any of it is beside the point. I am saying something more specific than that. I am saying that God's reception of your soul is not conditional on the completion of your healing. God's welcome is not the reward you receive after you have finished the work. God's welcome is the arms that catch you when you cannot finish. And for many of us, for most of us, if we are willing to be honest, that is the mercy we actually need. Not a God who grades our healing, a God who holds us while it continues. God does not require me to be whole before he holds me. Say it again. God does not require me to be whole before he holds me. Write that down somewhere. Put it somewhere you can see it, because that sentence is not a consolation prize. It is the gospel in plain language. Now let me tell you about the sword. There is a moment in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, where the infant Jesus is being presented in the temple, and an old man named Simeon takes the child in his arms and blesses God. And then he turns to Mary and says something that must have dropped into her, like a stone into still water. He says, "And a sword will pierce your own soul too, Mary, the most grace-filled woman who ever lived, the woman full of grace, the one chosen above every other woman in the history of the human family to carry the Son of God, the most surrendered soul who has ever walked this earth. And God told her from the very beginning that she was going to carry a sword in her own soul. She did not escape the wound. She was not promised a life without the wound. She was not given a grace that meant she would never suffer, or that the suffering would come in doses small enough to manage cleanly. She was given grace to carry what would be asked of her, and what was asked of her was enormous. She stood at the foot of the cross and watched her son die in agony. She held his broken body in her arms. She lived in that grief and carried that in her soul. And she was still the most fully given woman who ever lived, not because she was unwounded, but because she was surrendered in the middle of the wound. Her holiness was not the absence of the sword. Her holiness was the faithfulness she maintained while the sword was in her. Sister, your wound does not disqualify you. Mary carried her sword all the way home, and she is more fully received than anyone we know. This is where it gets deeper, and I need you to stay with me for what comes in this next part. Because the church has been holding a truth for centuries that somehow never reached the woman who needed it most. Before we go there, I want to say something plainly. If you have been faithful, if you have kept coming to Mass even when you did not feel anything, if you have kept praying even when the prayer felt like talking to a wall, and getting silence back. If you have kept going to confession even when the shame felt too large for the booth. If you have kept showing up dressed and smiling and holding it together in public while falling apart on the inside. If you have been strong for everybody else, for your children, for your husband, for your family, for your aging parents, while somewhere inside you there is a place that has not healed and that you carry quietly because there is nobody to hand it to. God has seen every single moment of that, every quiet sacrifice, every prayer said through tears, every rosary finished in the dark when you could not sleep. Every morning you got up and tried again, when the grief was still sitting there on your chest like something with weight. That faithfulness is not canceled by what you have not yet healed. That faithfulness is seen, it is held, it is known by name in heaven, and God is not done with you. Now I want to take you into something. I want to tell you what God actually does with the wounds a woman carries when she comes home to Him. Because this is where everything changes. There is a teaching in the Catholic Church that most people were taught wrong, or taught incompletely, or taught in a way that made them afraid instead of consoled. And I think it is time to hold it the way the Church actually holds it. Because when you understand it correctly, it does not increase your fear. It dismantles it entirely. So I want to start with Isaiah, chapter 57, verses 1 and 2. Listen to what God says. The righteous perish, and no one takes it to heart. The devout are taken away, and no one understands that the righteous are taken away to be spared from evil. Those who walk uprightly enter into peace. They find rest as they lie in death. They enter into peace. Not. They enter into peace only if they finished healing first. Not they enter into peace contingent on having resolved everything that was left unresolved. They enter into peace. The righteous woman who walked uprightly, who tried, who prayed, who kept showing up, who stayed faithful through the weight of it, she enters into peace. God does not abandon His daughter at the threshold. Some of you were taught that purgatory was a fearful thing. I want you to hear it the way the Church actually holds it, because this is where what you were taught may have been incomplete. What the Church teaches and has always taught is that God does not abandon the souls that are His. The souls that belong to Him, but are not yet fully ready for the full weight of His presence, are held in His mercy and brought the rest of the way. What could not be finished in the time of the life continues in the love of God. The healing that the woman could not complete, God completes it. The wounds that never fully closed in this life, God closes them. The grief that was never fully resolved, God resolves it. Not as punishment, not as a sentence handed down on souls who were not good enough, as purification, as the final, tender act of a mercy that does not stop at the edge of your life. Think about that for a moment. God's mercy does not stop at the edge of your life. He does not look at the unfinished places in your soul and say, "You should have worked harder." He looks at the unfinished places in your soul and says, "I will finish this. I started something in you, and I am going to complete it." Because that is who He is. He is not a God who abandons what He has begun. Philippians chapter 1, verse 6. He who began a good work in you will bring it to completion. He will bring it to completion. Not, He will bring it to completion if you finish the healing fast enough. Not, He will bring it to completion if you arrive at wholeness before you die. He will bring it to completion. Full stop. That is a promise, and God does not break his promises. This is not rejection. This is completion. This is the mercy of a father who looks at a daughter who tried and loved and suffered and prayed and gave what she had, and still did not arrive at wholeness in the time she was given, and says, "Come to me, come as you are. I will do the rest. I will finish what you could not finish, because I am not limited by the time you were given." Let that reach you. Let that actually reach you all the way down. I want to tell you about a woman. I will not give you her name, but I want you to hear this, because I think some of you are going to recognize her. She was a mother, a grandmother, a woman who had been in the church her whole life, a woman who had said the rosary, who had sat in adoration, who had raised her children in the faith and brought her burdens to confession and kept showing up no matter what the season looked like. She had been carrying something for decades, a wound with one of her children, a relationship that had fractured when that child walked away from the faith, and that she and her child had never been able to fully repair. She had prayed for that child every single day for years. She had lit candles and gone to adoration and offered it at Mass and cried and brought it back again. She had done everything a faithful Catholic mother knows to do. And the resolution she prayed for never came in the time she had. Her son was still far from the church when she got sick, and she knew she was running out of time. What her family told me later was this: in the last few days, something changed in her face. Not because the circumstances had changed, they had not. Her son was still far. The wound was still present. The resolution she had prayed for had not come. But something settled in her, a peace that did not come from circumstances, because the circumstances had not shifted, a peace that came from somewhere else entirely, from somewhere deeper than circumstances can reach. She died in the church. She died holding her rosary, and her family kept praying for her, the way Catholics do, because the church does not stop praying for her people just because they have crossed the threshold. And they believed in the faith they shared that what she had not been able to finish was still in the hands of a God who finishes things. Her son came back to the church the year after she died. I cannot give you a theological explanation for the precise mechanism of that, but I will tell you what I know. The prayers did not stop when she stopped breathing, and nobody who loved her was surprised. Now I want to bring you to a moment in the Gospel of John. Chapter 11. Lazarus has died. And Jesus arrives 4 days later, 4 days after the death, 4 days after the family has been waiting, 4 days after Mary and Martha have been sitting in their grief wondering where he is and why he has not come. And I want you to notice something before we get to the miracle. I want you to notice how he arrives. Mary falls at his feet. She is not composed. She is not performing her grief in a way that is tidy or managed. She is broken open, and she says to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." She said that to his face. "Lord, if you had been here, if you had come when I needed you, if you had not been late." And then the text says something I need you to see. When Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and saw all the others weeping with her, he groaned in the spirit, and he was troubled. And the text says simply, Jesus wept. He wept. The Son of God wept, not because he did not know what he was about to do. He knew he was about to raise Lazarus from the dead. He knew that before he arrived, and still he wept, because the grief of the people he loved moved him, because he did not wait for Mary to be composed before he came to where she was. He came into the middle of the grief. He met her in it. He let it matter to him. And then he moved. You are not running out of his mercy. He is already in the room. He is already weeping with you. And the raising is still coming. Some of you have been waiting for God to show up and fix things. And what you may have missed is that he is already in the room. He is already in the middle of it. He is already moved by what you are carrying. The raising is coming. But first, he weeps with you. First, he comes to where the grief is. First, he meets you right there. I want you to type something in the comments right now. Just type these words, "He is not finished with me." Because somebody scrolling through needs to see that today. Somebody who is almost ready to give up needs to see a woman just like her who typed those words and believed them. Type it, "He is not finished with me." Now I want to declare something with you. I want you to say this out loud. I am not disqualified. I am received. My unfinished places are not keeping God away from me. They are exactly where his mercy meets me. The wound in my soul is not a closed door. It is the place he enters most deeply. It is the place where what I could not accomplish on my own becomes what only he can complete. And for the woman who is watching this and thinking, but I have been carrying this for so long. I have prayed about it for years. I have tried to release it, and it has not moved. Hear me. The length of the struggle is not evidence that God has abandoned you. The length of the struggle is evidence that this goes deep. And things that go deep take time. And sometimes, they take more time than this life gives. And God has always known that. And his mercy was built around it from the beginning. He did not look at you and say, "She is too broken for what I have for her." He looked at you and said, "She needs what only I can give." And he moved toward you. He is still moving toward you. Now I want to pray with you. Father, I come before you right now on behalf of every woman watching this who is tired, who has been carrying something for a long time and has not been able to lay it down, who has prayed about it and wept about it and brought it to confession and set it at the altar, and still wakes up some mornings and finds it sitting there again. Reach her right now. Not when she has finished, not when she is whole. Right now, as she is, exactly where she is. For the woman who is afraid she is running out of time to be healed, speak peace into that fear today. Not the peace that circumstances give, because the circumstances have not all changed. The peace that passes understanding, the peace that only you can give, the peace that held a woman in her last days even when the resolution had not come. Give her that peace right now. For the woman who is carrying grief that never fully closed, hold what she has not been able to release. Take it from her hands and hold it in yours. Because your hands can hold what hers cannot, and you do not tire of holding it. For the woman who is afraid her wounds make her less worthy, less his, less received, tell her who she is. Tell her she is yours. Tell her she is received not in spite of the unfinished places, but right there in the middle of them. Tell her that what she could not complete, you will complete. Tell her that she is not running out of your mercy. She is running deeper into it. For the families who are praying for someone they have loved and lost. For the daughter praying for a mother who died still struggling. For the mother praying for a child who is gone. For everyone who has stood at a graveside and felt the weight of the unfinished. Remind them that your mercy does not stop at the edge of a life, that what you have begun, you complete, that the woman they loved is in your hands, and your hands do not let go. For every woman who has kept showing up, kept going to Mass when she did not feel it, kept saying the rosary when she did not feel it, kept going to confession when the shame felt too heavy to carry into that booth, kept praying when the prayer felt like silence going nowhere, let her feel today that you have seen every moment of it, every hidden faithfulness, every sacrifice that nobody else witnessed, every prayer said in the dark through tears. You see her, you know her name, you love her, and you are not finished with her. In Jesus' name. What your hands could not finish, his hands complete. And his mercy does not end at the edge of your life. You are not disqualified. You are his. Amen. The woman who dies before she is fully healed does not die abandoned. She dies received. She is carried the rest of the way by the same mercy that found her in the middle of it. Because his mercy is not the reward you receive for finishing the process. It is the nature of who he is. And it does not require your wholeness. It creates it. You are not too broken. You are not too late. You are not disqualified. You are his. And he is not done with you. In the next message, I want to talk to the woman who is still here. Still carrying, still waiting, still praying for something that has not come yet. Because what God does with a woman who refuses to quit, what he is building in that long faithfulness, what he is forming in her through the years of it, is something I need you to see. Stay close, because that word is coming.